Okay, welcome back to our reading of Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit. We want to find the standpoint of science, and Hegel has written the preface on that. We are reading paragraph 3 today, but let us just summarize. So, paragraph 1, he says, we shouldn't start with a preface because philosophy is really about the execution. So, basically, we shouldn't use a preface and focus on the philosophical work because that is what matters for philosophy doing the proof instead of just giving you the result. And that may also be a philosophical lifestyle. Well, that's a good question. So then he explains further how actually philosophy works, and it is a sort of connection between the individual parts of life, which, is, for example, bodies, tables, chairs, life goals, and so on, with the overall whole, which is everything. And he exemplifies that through the life of a plant, where we have different stages that it goes through. And also, very important, it seems one stage contradicts another stage. For example, the bud is contradicted by the blossom, and then the blossom is contradicted by the fruit. But overall, they all belong to the same plant. And this is the same for philosophy. It builds an organic unit in history. And we cannot say that one philosophical system is false and then the system afterwards that negates it is true. They rather appear as a form of historical plant that starts to blossom, bloom, and build fruits. So, having that said, we have now described our philosophical position, and let's just keep on reading. So, demanding and supplying these superficial explanations passes readily enough as a concern with what is essential. So, okay, when we demand questions like what is the result of your philosophy, what do you want, and so on, it seems as if we are really essentially concerned with philosophy, while in fact we are not doing philosophy, as Heidegger would say, really authentically, authentisch, eigentlich. Yeah. So, where could the inner meaning of a philosophical work find fuller expression than in its aims and results? And how could these be more exactly known than by distinguishing them from everything else the age brings forth in this sphere? So yeah, he just repeats this basic criticism. It seems to be right to present the aims and results, and that seems to be what philosophy is about. But of course, it's a rhetorical question, so he proceeds. Yet when this activity is taken for more than the mere beginnings of cognition, when it is allowed to pass for actual cognition, then it should be reckoned as no more than a device for evading the real issue, die Sache selbst, a way of creating an impression of hard work and serious commitment to the problem while actually sparing oneself both. So yeah, so what happens if we say this is actually real philosophical work, then we are not doing the hard work that philosophy really requires. Die Sache selbst, the real issue. Yeah, the real issue, it's a weird translation because it says the thing itself, not the thing in itself, that would be something else. So what he wants is that we focus on the matters at hand. That's how I read him as a phenomenologist. And by the way, it's called Phenomenology of Spirit. And my teacher, Tom Rockmore, he always pointed out that it's called a phenomenology of spirit, but then people say, yeah, but it's not really a phenomenology, it's more like an appearance of spirit. And he said, well, nobody really asked whether phenomenology of spirit could actually be a phenomenology. And he always claimed, well, it's the most genuine kind of phenomenology. Anyway, that's the credo actually of the Husserlian philosophy. It says zu den Sachen selbst, yeah, to the things themselves. And this is what he also says here. So it's interesting. For the real issue, and we keep in mind that's not like the real thing, like the matter at hand. No, it's die Sache in German, which is, as Heidegger would say, something that is more ready to my hands, a ready-to-hand thing, or as he says in German, zu handen. Yeah, it's not an abstracted thing. It's something that you really use. So we could make that connection here in Hegel too. So for the real issue is not exhausted by stating it as an aim, but by carrying it out. Nor is the result the actual whole, but rather the result together with a process through which it came through. So I think it's meaningful to read the sentence here a little bit in detail because he says important things here. So the real thing is not exhausted by its aim. So we don't get close to the real philosophical idea if we just explain the aim. But the real thing has to be related to the process, the way we carry it out. And the result is also not the whole, yeah, but the result together with the process. So we need the result, the process, them together, and then we get the whole. The aim by itself is a lifeless universal. Okay, this here is a criticism of maybe a mere theory of forms, I would say. We can call that a lifeless universal. It's also when you look into his lectures on the history of philosophy, he also makes this claim that we always have two ways of looking at a thing. It's either in rest or in motion. But philosophy is kind of both. Like the aim is its rest, but its resting point is an eternal motion at the same time. So that's always what I find so intriguing about his philosophy, that it joins seemingly contradictory things. And yeah, well, but that's a larger issue. So let's just keep going. Just as the guiding tendency is a mere drive that as yet lacks an actual existence. So yeah, and I think what he says here, so I'm not entirely sure what he says here. Maybe he's, so the question to me is, what is the guiding tendency? What does he mean by the guiding tendency? Is a mere drive that as yet lacks an actual existence. So I think, so the lifeless universal, I think he still relates it to the lifeless universal. So it's like we are guided by the lifeless result, and it's a mere drive, but it does not have manifested itself and does not show what it is. I mean, my other assumption here is that he could refer to the process that without a universal aim is also meaningless. So, but I'm not entirely sure. So I think there are two ways of interpreting that right now. And the bare result is the corpse which has left the guiding tendency behind. Okay, yeah, so reading this now, I think, okay, then when we just have the result, then we are not related to the guiding tendency, to life, to the drive anymore. If we have only the drive, then we lack actual existence. It's not real, right? When I'm just like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, but in the end, it amounts to nothing. So similarly, the specific difference of a thing is rather its limit. Okay, so this here is a little bit harder to understand, I believe, because what is the specific difference? So I think he refers here to the way of how we do definitions, definition of a definition, right? I remember a student once said to me in one of my first classes when I was tutoring, like maybe 10 years ago, she was, oh, can't you just give us the definitions? Then we learn them for the test. She was very angry. She just got a C at the course. And I was just the assistant, right? Yeah, and I tried to tell you that philosophy is about the definition of a definition, right? But yeah, let's just come to the classic idea of a definition. A definition always gives us the proximate genus and the so-called specific difference. Now, what is that? So if I have a lion and I want to define what a lion is, then I look in the genetic tree, what is the next genus, the proximate genus? And I mean, I don't really know what it is, but let's say it's a cat, right? Then we say, okay, a lion is a cat. But there are many cats, right? House cats, for example. So then I still need a specific difference to define a lion. Now, I'm not a good biologist, but usually the example is given. A lion is a cat with a mane. There are certainly more things, but this is just an example to illustrate. It does not have to be 100% correct, right? And then the specific thing, the specific difference is what makes the lion different from other cats. So, and I think that what he says here. So similarly, the specific difference of a thing is rather its limit. It is where the thing stops, or it is what the thing is not. So that's very interesting, right? If it's limiting the thing and what it is at the same time, it makes the thing what it is, but it also tells us what the thing is not anymore. That is because, like, if you think about of the limit, if the limit is part of the thing, then how is it not the thing anymore, but it actually distinguishes it from other things? If the limit, however, is not part of the thing, right? Um, then where's the limit of the thing? So it's okay. Maybe I have to make that more clear, but it's a common paradox in philosophy, and I cannot explain it right now very well. So maybe you can let yourself guide it by the intuition to understand that a little bit. I think the intuition should be clear. So the limit is the thing, and it is not the thing at the same time. You may have another opinion. There's a lot of debate. Hegel defends this dialectical position here. This concern with aim or results, with differentiating and passing judgment on various thinkers, is therefore an easier task than it might seem. Okay, so here goes back here now to the original topic, namely differentiating something from other thinkers. So if you remember paragraph 1, he said, okay, what do many people do in a preface, right? They say, okay, we present the results and then we also distinguish it from other people. So maybe with a specific difference, he meant here the specific difference of my philosophy from another philosophy. That's the proximate genus, right? And then I explain what makes my philosophy special. So, and he says, okay, that may seem like both things together, that may seem an easier task than it is. And with regard to the limit, we have this dialectical concern, right? That somehow the limit of my philosophy also belongs to the other philosophy still. I guess that's what he wants to say. I hope I can make myself here clear. I don't want that green, I want that yellow. Now I don't know how to do it anymore. Okay, doesn't matter. For instead of getting involved in the real issue, this kind of activity is always a way beyond it. Instead of tarrying with it and losing itself in it, this kind of knowing is forever grasping at something new. It remains essentially preoccupied with itself instead of being preoccupied with the real issue and surrendering to it. So, okay, his complaint here is that these prefaces, as they have been written, they are not really concerned with the real issue at hand, and they are always trying to grasp something new. But it seems he suggests that's a meaningless activity. Now, the question is why? And he says they are never getting to the real issue, they are always already beyond it. So I guess when they are focused on the result, instead of focusing on the process, they are lifeless, right? It's just a corpse. And if they try to differentiate themselves from others, they actually say, they tell us what is the limit, and so they are not telling us what their philosophy is. So they are not telling us what they should tell us. I guess that's what he's saying. I think you could probably explain it a bit better. If so, you can do it in the comments, right, to help others. But I think that should be kind of clear. So to judge a thing that has substance and solid worth is quite easy. To comprehend it is much harder, and to blend judgment and comprehension in a definite description is the hardest thing of all. So he's just describing what I try to do here, right? To really grasp the thing at hand that he tries to describe, and really to poke into these sentences. Don't know how you say that in English better. And to really pull out the content instead of just referring to historical elements. I don't want to do that much. I will do it, but only if it helps us to illustrate what it is about. So again, to judge a thing that has substance, solid worth is quite easy. Yeah, I can judge a philosophy. I don't like Kant. Like, he said so much stupid stuff. It's always easy to judge about a genius, I guess. He's just put on a pedestal by all these continental philosophers. They say he's a genius. What does that even mean? Okay, but he's a genius. Okay, it's easy to judge these things, right? But then comprehending it instead of just saying he's a genius. He's not a genius, he's stupid, right? That's a difficult thing to really deal with the matter. And I mean, that's true, right? How often do we see that Hegel is judged but not really discussed? And when do we find a good description of what he's doing? Rarely. Anyway, if you enjoyed this description of what he's doing, then you can subscribe and leave a comment and keep up the discussion. I hope it's clear the way I present it. I remember when I was reading Hegel for the first time, I needed hours for a page and I still didn't understand what he was doing. Now it becomes clearer to me, but also only because I already read this preface a couple of times with other people together, with students. I think it's very valuable to read it, and it's great that you're reading that. So therefore, thank you, live long, read more Hegel, and prosper.